This morning, I ran into an old acquaintance I've known for quite a few years. She's a mother of a large family. And I said, "Oh, I haven't seen you forever." And she lives quite near me, so I didn't really know why. She said, "Yeah." She said, "You haven't seen me." She said, "Because my daughter, she had like a bunch of sons, and then she had like a daughter. After a bunch of sons, and I guess she just basically all of her sons. She's married off all of her sons, and now she finally last year and a half ago, she married off that daughter. So she said, yeah, my daughter, my daughter had a baby, Baruch Hashem, and the baby is very, very, very sick. So the baby is most of the time in the hospital. And even when the baby's not in the hospital, then she has to be hooked up to oxygen tanks, and it's very. So she said it's been very, very difficult. It's been very difficult for us. It's been very difficult for my daughter. And she said, and maybe you have some advice for me. I don't know why she thought I would have advice for her, but she said maybe you have. She said, I have a feeling you'd have advice for me. She said, my daughter, she doesn't want to leave. She doesn't want to leave the house. She doesn't want to leave the house with the baby. She knows. Like the daughter says, I know so many people. I'm going to run into the people, and they'll see the baby, and the baby looks a little bit not 100% like your average baby, and the baby has an oxygen tank, and they're going to look at the baby and look at me, and she said I'd just be too embarrassed that they would see like I have like an imperfect baby. Okay, imperfect is her word, not mine. So we were sort of talking, and I was sort of giving some ideas of whatever, of like how like to help the daughter. But then like the mother, finally, she said, well, she said, I think that this is a test, this is a nisayon my daughter's going through, and I went through the same nisayon, the same test, and it's learning to not care so much what people think about you. So I should tell you, so just to give you some background for this mother, she's a person I admire a great deal, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person with a ton of emunah, a ton of faith. And she said, so basically this woman, she's a mother of a large family, and she's a member of a small Hasidic group, like relatively small Hasidic group, where it's like almost unheard of for women to for married couples to divorce. And this woman did get a divorce. She was in an abusive marriage, and after many years and having many children, then she divorced. And she said I had to go through that nisayon of stopping to care what people think about me. And my daughter, no, she's only 18 years old. This girl, she got married when she was 17. Now she's only 18. She said she has to learn the same thing. And it really spoke to me because I think that so many of us, like this is such a weakness for, I think probably nearly everyone. Learning to a little bit, learning to care less what people think about us. I've been reading over the last few days. I've been reading this amazing book. It's called. Unfortunately, it's only in Hebrew. I bet it's going to be translated because it's amazing. It's called Sodo Shel Harabi. The secret of the Rebbe by Yechiel Harari. It was just put out in Hebrew by Yediot Books. So basically, it's really like a page turner. It's just basically right now. I'm just in the beginning of the book, just reading about the Rebbe's, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's personal history, and what his life looked like before he became the Rebbe. So right now I'm reading about when the Rebbe arrived in Crown Heights in 1941. Actually, a month after my father was born. That was interesting, and it says there like how when the previous Rebbe, when he arrived in Crown Heights, how people how they bought 770, and how the residents didn't they thought it was going to be bad for real estate prices to have all these Hasidim living in the neighborhood, because up until then it had been 60% Jewish, been like a middle class, solidly middle class. Not such an orthodox neighborhood, so they were worried it was going to be bad for real estate prices if all these Hasidim showed up. Sort of old world Hasidim showed up. So the residents when the previous Rebbe came and they bought 770, they made a petition to drive these people out of the neighborhood, so they wouldn't be allowed to buy 770. Another thing is that when the Lubavitcher Rebbe, like Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, it took a year when his father-in-law between when his father-in-law passed away, and between that and when he was chosen to be the Rebbe. So he actually had. So he was married. He was married. He was the second son-in-law. He was married to the second daughter of the previous Rebbe. So in fact, it might have made a little bit more sense, possibly, if the oldest son-in-law, the husband of the oldest daughter, had been chosen to be the Rebbe. And in fact, the Rebbe's mother-in-law, whose name was Rebbetzin Nechamadina, she favored the Rebbe's brother-in-law. She didn't want like the Rebbe, the Lubavitch Rebbe that we know of as the Lubavitch Rebbe. She didn't want him to be the Rebbe. She wanted his brother-in-law to be chosen as the Rebbe. I'm just choosing these two things because it just shows to me like what kind of greatness it is to be a person who just really doesn't care who's focused on doing what Hashem wants him to be doing and the right thing for the Jewish people and the right thing for and he doesn't care so much what everyone's thinking about him, like all like the neighbors who hated him and wanted to get this Hasidim out, or for his mother-in-law, wanted to like the mother-in-law who didn't want him and wanted the brother-in-law. He is just focused on, and I guess like the Rebbe, I guess he's like such a he's like the civil, like true greatness, a person with true greatness. He doesn't care so much what people think about him. I've been seeing just in current events in Israel. I've been seeing also there's a rabbi named Rabbi David Stav, who is now running to be elected the chief rabbi of Israel. And actually, he was my husband's rabbi many years ago in yeshiva. He now, I guess some people are opposed to him. They think that he's too. They don't like his halachic rulings. They don't like his views on things. So now, like last week, he went to 2 weddings, and at both weddings, people physically pushed him. At least at the first wedding, he went to a wedding in Bnei Brak. People were physically pushing him. They yelled at him. They called him a rasha, a wicked person, and they tried to trip him. And again, he went to another wedding in Ashdod, and the same thing happened. They yelled at him, and just thinking about that, thinking about this person, and he's not giving up. He's not stepping down. He is Rabbi David Stav. He is, keeping with him. He's going to run for the chief rabbi of Israel. And I don't know whether he'll be elected, but I think it's a sign of greatness. It's a sign of greatness to do what you think, like to follow your conscience, and to say, okay, Hashem, this is what Hashem wants from me, and this is what I believe is the right thing for the Jewish people, and to stick with it and not to care so much what people think about you. It reminds me also, the first Jew, Avram Avinu. So it says about Avram Avinu that he was an Ivri. So he was a Hebrew. What does that mean, Ivri? Ivri means that everyone else, the entire world, was on the other side, and he was on the other side of him, from him. So he was like. He was a loner. He was doing what he thought was right. He believed that there was one God, and he stood up for that. And I think that we all. So I want to bless all of us, that all of us should be the children of Avram Avinu. I'm not saying to totally not care what people think about you. It is important to get along with people. But I think in many cases, as I grow older and I see more and more situations in life, I just see how many situations there are in which following my conscience and following what I believe is what Hashem wants from me, taking what Rabbi Niven calls my next step in Avodat Hashem, my next step in serving God, it's not something that's going to be so popular with everyone in the world, but I'm a child of, I and all of us, we're children of Avram Avinu, we're Jews, so I want to bless all of us that we shouldn't care so much if we're doing the right thing, we're following our conscience, and we're doing what we believe is our next step in Avodat Hashem, and to go for it, and not to be looking around and so concerned that this one's angry at us and that one's angry at us. Just the most important thing should be doing the right thing. I also want to just say one side note is that this is going to be my last pep talk for a few weeks. I'm actually traveling to Baltimore for a week and a half for my sister's wedding. My sister Miriam is getting married. So it's going to be, the next 2 weeks there's not going to be email pep talk. I'm looking forward to getting back and like being in touch with you guys then. Okay, call to bye bye, and have a wonderful week.